Okay, so we're group Mary Had a Little Lamb, and our project is Universal Design for Learning the Representation Principle. My name's Lisbeth.
Desiree.
I'm Leslie.
And I'm Tanner.
Okay, so the first video offers kind of an overview of what UDL is. And so the definition would be framework based in cognitive neuroscience for designing learning experiences that work across a wide spectrum of learners. Its main purpose would be to make sure that everyone is a successful learner, and that they achieve a expert learner, which means they know it all, know how to do it, and love learning. This design is based on the power to be flexible. It has three principles. How do we present information to the learner, which is the representation principle, which is what we will be focusing on. How do they express and act on the information, and how are they engaged in the learning situation? So the representation principle says that no one mean of representation is optimal for every learner, as they differ in how they perceive and make meaning of information. That means that there must be provided multiple means of representation to ensure that everyone can make sense of the symbols, drawings, and language.
Perception. Because of various cultures and histories, students understand information in many different ways. It is important to present information through various styles. These styles can be vision or through our eyes, hearing, hearing aids, or sign language, the hearing impaired for the deaf, hard of hearing, or in touch. For vision, low light may be needed or even more light. Maybe larger font or larger graphics, black font or graphics on a white blackboard, or even animation. Stick figures or graphic novels. For hearing, which is sound, it could be speech to text, which is a recorded voice reading the text, could be music, sign language for the deaf, or vibrations, or even the volume just maybe a little higher. For touch, it could be something the person can feel with their body. Sometimes it could be a stuffed animal, sand, or popsicle sticks. Each individual will be different. Sometimes guest speakers that have been there and done that can also help students perceive information in a different light altogether.
So moving on to the next segment of is language and symbols. So one thing is that inequalities arise when there is a single form of representation. So for example, if you look at the image right in your bottom left, if you look from left to right, you might think that it is a rabbit. However, if you see it from the other way, you might see that it's a duck. And this represents that all learners do not have the same frame of reference. So one key strategy to ensure multiple representations are available for students is clarity, comprehensibility, and accessibility, and a shared understanding for all types of learners. One way that we can do that is to clarify vocabulary, symbols, and language structures. Um, in a classroom setting, we can embed support in a text through, for example, hyperlinks, footnotes, and illustrations. Another way is decoding of text, mathematical notation, and symbols. So what this means basically is whenever we are presenting new content or revising content, we can always apply through text to speech. And there's also many types of representations of notations. For example, in math, you can represent an answer in formulas or word problems. And then the next one is promoting cross-linguistic understanding. So for example, we have English language learners, and we know that language and symbols can be confusing to them. So one way to make it more accessible for them and provide clarity is through using multilingual glossaries and integrating a diverse curriculum so that they are able to be encouraged to learn in both cultures and languages. And lastly, offering content through multiple languages and symbols, again, it increases accessibility. One way that we can do that is through closed captioning and sign language. So for our students who have disabilities, we're able to provide them with a more inclusive curriculum. as well as our multilingual learners, we can label classroom items in multiple languages.
So the third guideline is building knowledge, and this focuses on the options for comprehension, and it's about students taking the knowledge that they get and transferring it to like usable information. And the reason why they need to do this is because all students differ in their ability to process information and recall previous knowledge, and also transforming information to usable knowledge is an active process. So students can't just sit in class, receive information, and automatically know something. They need to work on it and go through it in an active process to fully understand it. And ways that we can like properly design presentations and lessons to have this option for them is to connect to prior understandings and experiences. So maybe starting off the lesson by talking about the previous one or a connection previously. You can point out ideas and how they connect to the learning goals. So why you're doing what you're doing, not just getting information because it's information. Honoring diverse ways of learning and interpreting knowledge. So those are like Desiree mentioned at the beginning. So different types of learners and how we address them. And then the fourth one would be applying learning to new contexts. So taking that knowledge and actually applying it to real world scenarios so that they know why they're learning what they're learning.
So the second video kind of gives an overview again of what the UDL framework is and how it's used to reduce barriers students face in the classroom and increase access to opportunities for them to succeed. It gives examples for representation examples for university courses. So the representation principle is the what network in our heads. It provides key content in different ways to help students build important knowledge and ways of thinking. So there's a variety of information formats. Some concrete strategies are developed important vocabulary. So some ways to do that are offering glossary of key terms linked to vocabulary resources, and then offer learner control resources. So giving students the access to the playback speed and sound, recording the lectures with lecture capture software. The third one is to show relationship among ideas. So some of that would be using a concept map to illustrate relationships between ideas or annotating text to point out key features. And then the fourth one would be chunk information into smaller content, which would be building topical conceptual units and then content packages. Some of the target specific learner groups, this first one would help non-proficient readers, international students, and introverts, which would be to provide them text to spoken equivalents of visual material. The second one would help students with cognitive impairments, underachieving students, or English learners, English language learners. And that would be offering content that's hyperlinked information or footnotes.
And that is the end of our presentation.